I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. We have two women, that are going to talk to us about artificial intelligence, and they will be sharing experiences with us. The first presenter for today is Natalie R. She's a woman in SA ambassador, innovator, inventor, and she was previously accepted to Stanford University, and she is the first National Bank's only Black female prize innovation winner for 4 years, winning the first ever innovation prize at the age of 23. She leads Women in a South Africa education stream and has a PhD, which is passion for HER, for hair development. Her inventions, Africa's first autonomous RPA, robotic process automation software, bio-degradable 3D printing, drinking filters and straws, and with Inventor partnerships, build Africa's first AI walking stick and various other machine learning firsts. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you, Theodora, and thanks to everyone who's joined the live broadcast and the live webinar. It's such an amazing welcome. It's a privilege to speak to you, Jay, and to speak with you, Jay, sending a strong voice that there's women in this industry too. So I've started on my journey 17 years ago, and it was as a filing clerk for a financial institution, and this was done whilst I was studying. During the journey, there was a passion, or I wouldn't say a passion, but more of a attraction to IT, and that's when I saw the move into IT. And as a female sitting around a boardroom with a male-dominated front was prevalent then, and it's probably prevalent now as well. I see myself sitting around a table with male-dominated IT expertise, and here I am, the only person of color sometimes within or around a round table. And you may ask, how did I get there, and what was my learnings, and what can I share with you? The journey was, for me, pretty easy. The main characteristics of the journey was to always keep abreast with the technological advancements of that was relevant within the market at the time. And in saying that, it's what I do today. There's so much to consume, and the next question you probably have is, what should I consume? What is the thing that's dominating the market right now? And as you may have heard, 4IR is our next buzzword, and AI is just there below it. And I'm not sure if many of you understand what AI is. AI is this umbrella where things like chatbots, robots, software robots, as well as physical robots, any automation that sits under there, machine learning, neural networks, and there's a host of other aspects to AI. Dominating in the market right now, I'm sure we've all heard about robotics, where people are fearful that a software robot or physical robot is just merely there to take over our jobs and to replace humans. And I hope that during my session with you that I am able to change your mindset regarding AI and its role in society. So now that we have a brief overview of what AI is, let me talk to you about what or where are we using AI right now, and how have we subconsciously adopted many of these AI technologies without even blinking an eye. I'm sure we all use Waze or Google Maps or any of those direction, travel sort of apps. And, or maybe not in the last 2 months because of lockdown and COVID, but prior to that, we probably all did. And the mechanism behind Waze or Google Maps is AI, but it's presented in such a simple form that we think it's just an application sitting on our phone and it's easily downloadable. Waze allows you to navigate from point A to point B, telling you when there's an accident, what's the traffic like, which points to turn at, as well as rerouting you. Now, how does Waze know all of that? There's AI algorithms behind that, sending satellite packets of data back and forth, identifying images that look like a car crash or images that look like our SAPS police, Metro Police vans. And that's how it translates into the information that we receive. And again, to my point, we've just adopted Waze as if it's this easy thing, but that's AI. My question to the attendees is, when last have we used a doorbell? When last have we gone to someone's home and kind of used a doorbell? I think probably for me, 20 years ago, perhaps. Right now, we all use WhatsApp and we sit outside in our car and we say, I'm here. Or we use WhatsApp calls and we say, I'm here. WhatsApp is run WhatsApp sits on an AI platform and all we see is it as a texting app. For the young people on the line, the millennials and thereafter, we all use Spotify as well as iTunes. Now, if you log on to Spotify or iTunes or Apple Music, you would notice that there's categories of songs. Songs for your mood, songs to get you happy, song of the day, top 100 songs. And behind that application as well is AI. The point I'm making is we kind of think, or we allowing ourselves to think that AI is that thing that is so far away that we haven't touched it yet. And I've presented 3 scenarios where we have consumed AI, probably use it on a daily basis, and we've been accepting of it. Now, I want to debunk the myth that robots are here to replace our humanness, our human capacity. I want to show you that software robots and AI, especially new technology, has been derived and has come to the fore and has become as relevant as we know it to be now, only to assist humans. And by saying that, I want to introduce a lady that is phenomenal because she's a mom of 2 young children, 7 and 2 years old. She works a full-time 8 to 5, 8 to 6 job. She started off, like many of us, in an operational area and has self-taught, and she's self-taught in the AI robotic space. And she speaks very profoundly that AI is here to assist and is assisting her in her space and in her role currently. And with that, I want to introduce Irisha. Hi, Irisha, welcome.
Hi, Natalie. Thank you for having me. This is actually so exciting.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for making the time available to chat to us and chat to the attendees. Just quickly, give us, I gave a brief introduction of who you are, but tell us briefly your background.
So I started in a financial institution. In operations, I started as a payments officer, and then further moved on to managing my own team within operations as cross-border payments. Currently in cross-border payments now within a financial institution in operations.
So you have no technical background?
None whatsoever. None
But
whatsoever.
I'm sure you know how to send an email and use Spotify and iTunes and all of the apps that I
Yes.
spoke about, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, the topic for today is just women in AI and their journey and their experience regarding artificial intelligence. Now, I'm sure the audience also, is wondering, how come you are on this panel? Because you have such an operational background. And from your conversation with me, you told me that you've self-taught yourself how to code software robots. Now, how did that journey start? You're in a financial institution. How did you get to do this?
So the financial institution that I currently work to they introduced me initially to it, and they spoke about how this automation can actually assist us and simplify our job. So being a leader, I had to start that process and kind of teach myself so my team can also be a part of the learning and growing and the solution, and not just the disruptions that are caused by business.
Yeah.
So they offered me a program that I joined. They taught me from start, what it is to actually like code your own bot, and how it can help you and assist you in, those mundane, repetitive tasks that nobody likes to do. The bots, can assist you with that. So started on this program, was very hesitant and scared because, like I said, I did not have any background with systems. But funny enough, it was very easy to grasp. It was something, like a new skill that you learn.
That's very interesting. So you alluding to the fact that your institution brought about this awareness, and this awareness and this sort of, excitement captured you, and it showed you opportunities that, hey, adopting robotics in your space can actually assist you as well as your team, because like you said,
definitely,
right? And then you said that you've started in this operational area and you've seen that robots are there to assist with the mundane tasks.
Yes.
Are you still employed?
Yes. I am still employed. And
I was just checking because, the myth out there is that robots or software robots or artificial intelligence is there to replace humans. But if you're still in your job, what has the robot done then?
The bot, what I can say, has actually simplified tasks within my team because, like I said, it took over those mundane, repetitive tasks. So it gave us time to focus on the more important tasks at hand. So it hasn't replaced my job at all, nor any of my team members. It's actually assisted us.
So you have the capabilities now to identify processes that are mundane and repetitive.
Yes.
And are you now more equipped to understand, the return on investment if a process is automated?
Definitely. I saw that, within this journey of learning the whole how to automate a process and thinking like a system, that is one of the things that we did learn. And you can definitely see the benefit.
And how do you think, I introduced you and I said you're a mom of two. Do you think your knowledge now paves a way for your children?
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely. I mean, while being on this journey, it was my 7-year-old son was very excited and very intrigued about what I was learning and what I was doing. And to show him that and be able to kind of explain it and teach it to him as I was learning it it's definitely beneficial, because he wouldn't have to wait at a later stage to, start something like this. He can already be involved in automation and robotics from a young age.
Yeah, I fully agree, because like you saying, if you from an operational point of view with no technical background can write a piece of code, that's phenomenal in itself. So it must be that easy for a child to grasp. And then
even easier.
Even easier, yes, because they are so technologically inclined. And then what advice would you give to the attendees on the line who are mums, who have a similar background to you, who want to walk this journey of AI?
The first piece of advice that I would give is to step away from the idea or the thought that this is replacing our jobs, because it really doesn't. Another thing is that a lot of the times, and I was one of them in the beginning, who assumes that, this is so hard, I will not be able to do it. You need some kind of, background to be able to do these things. You really don't. It is not hard to learn. It's quite easy to grasp. And think of it as a solution, not as replacing us or replacing our jobs. Definitely go for it.
And the learning, you'd have to split your time between acquiring this new skill. There's learning involved. You have to be a mom, and then still manage your area, your job. What advice would you give to the attendees on this call regarding, how do you juggle all three?
I actually, you have to set times for yourself. So just like as you're studying and you're learning, you would set specific times to, do these things. So for me, you just had to be very structured and disciplined with how you plan your time.
Okay. And I think I want to round up the conversation, and thank you so much for addressing the audience and being, allowing us to interview you live. And I think the key points that you have made, Arisha, is that you have taken it upon yourself to go down this journey. You have put yourself in the forefront of AI and robotics, not only for yourself, but to be a part of the solution and the change in what our country is driving through 4IR, as well as being that mentor to your own children, because this is the world they will live in.
Definitely.
Thank you for your time, and I hope you stay on the line to address some
Thank
of the
you for having
questions
me.
that we may have. And to round off the conversation about AI, I want to make it known that AI is simply harmonizing human and artificial intelligence. It has to be a joint effort between a human as well as the technology. If there's any truth to technology, it only means that we have to be accepting of it. And in saying that, thank you.
I think I'm now going to introduce Varsha. Varsha Ramesar is an executive at Data IOCO Tech with roughly 19 years experience in the ICT industry, which is banking, financial services, and e-commerce. She occupied senior leadership positions in data-centric roles, developing and implementing IT and data strategies in support of delivering measurable results in enterprise in business strategy. Most recently, her role has been consolidating and designing an enterprise data offering across technologies and skills that enables businesses to more easily gain actionable insights from data and to drive more automation. Core to the business is driving the talent development for data roles, especially in data science and analytics, by creating a pipeline of skilled individuals who can grow into niche data competencies. Welcome, Varsha. The platform is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for your time this afternoon. So Natalie does all the really smart, interesting stuff. I guess from the intro you've understood that I do a bit more of the corporate world. So I have a bit of a PowerPoint, but it's just to help us structure the thinking and thoughts around it. I'm going to share that with you now. So my perspective and what I want to share with you today is around the house that AI lives in. And the reason I want to share this is we always do talk about the robotics and the advanced intelligence components and the job opportunities in that space. But I'd also like to share with you the ecosystem that AI actually resides in and what are all the different bits and pieces that kind of make up this AI world and what supports it. With that in mind, what I'm sharing with you today, I'm sharing a bit that comes from client conversations. As part of my role, I'm privileged to be able to work across various industries. So that's in financial institutions, manufacturing, etc. And what is really intriguing is that everyone has a common data challenge, which again, I think creates wonderful opportunities to create new jobs in that market and to create new ways of thinking and doing what we do. Also bringing in a bit of the best practice. So if you live in a data world, you'll come across something called DMBOK. That is your data management body of knowledge. So for those of you studying, it's like the go-to mantra around all the best practices around data. All of that creates a foundation for all the AI that needs to exist. And in a couple of slides, I'm going to explain why that's important. And then I'm bringing in some other perspectives like Gartner. So some of you might have read or seen that when it comes to technologies and things around data, there's usually these external bodies that tell us what's doing really well, what's not doing so well. So even in the world of AI and analytics, you'll see mention of Python, R, but then you'll hear about IBM Watson or something around Cloudera Workbench. All of these are actually enablers in technology to just help you get through AI creation. And then I'm bringing in a bit of my personal experience. So yeah, just from, I guess, nearly going to be 2 decades of being a female in this environment. And I guess I almost fell into this job by accident. So I'm just going to bring to you a bit, I think, from my learnings, and hopefully some of this helps you have a more deliberate data journey. The next bit I want to share with you is, I guess when I spoke about ecosystems, when you think about the words out there right now, analytics is top of mind. I think talk to anybody, any organization, analytics is there. And I think to what Natalie shared, sometimes we're using analytics without even thinking about it. So that's your Waze app, that's your Uber Eats app, etc. But other things that are emerging are things around blockchain, things about this edge IoT, and all of that is talking about more sources of data coming together, being consolidated, enabling even better analytics. So once we go into the machine learning space, we've now got an environment where we've had enough data come in, enable us to create these algorithms which can now predict certain things. And then we create a feedback loop that's actually bringing back the learnings and perpetually improving this model. And that's where the machine learning bit comes in. Another interesting concept that you'll be hearing a lot about is SaaS. So that is everything as a service. And the thinking around that is, if you think back maybe 10 years ago, if you wanted to be a programmer or someone in AI, you had to have studied only the sciences kind of things, mastered maths, mastered stats, etc. And we had some wonderful programming languages like C++, etc., which were painful. Moving into this new world, things are a lot more modular. And I think this again talks to job creation. There are more technologies out there that enable you to actually create your own bits of analytics, your own bits of robotics. And we call a lot of this everything as a service, because it means you're able to almost use Lego blocks, pull out different pieces, put them together and create an outcome without needing to understand the underlying complexity of the algorithm itself, which is absolutely brilliant. I think if we think about the future, I don't think it's that far away a vision to have a 5-year-old or an 85-year-old both sitting programming robotics. I actually think it's very achievable. The next bit I want to share with you is around jobs and careers in data. Now, this is a view from Gartner, and Gartner is seen as one of those best practice views of what is happening globally. What is very interesting about careers in data is that a lot of the jobs you see out here right now, these didn't exist 20 years ago, 10 years ago, some didn't exist 5 years ago. And that is really, really fascinating. Because, previously you would say, I'm going to map out a career. I'm going to start as a junior developer, become a intermediate developer, then senior developer, then an architect or something to that effect. Now, if you look at what's happening when you bring in the data sciences and all of the analytical roles out there, and this whole importance of data, the jobs look different. And the challenge and the opportunity is that we don't know 2 years from now, what does the job look like? Isn't just a high-level overview here, focus very much in a C-suite level. And when I say C-suite, companies have traditionally had a chief information officer, traditionally a chief financial officer. This last decade has seen the growth of this chief data officer, very much alongside that, the chief analytics officer. And their main purpose is about driving analytics in the organization. And the common theme that you will find will always be around get me as much data as possible, find me as much insights as possible. And I think a lot of the challenge is, what does my ideal data analytics person look like? If you look at some of the descriptions here, the data science lab team, we find more and more that it's not a single role. This is actually a squad approach where you have multiple different roles coming together to create these types of analytical outcomes. I'm going to move to the next one. So this you may have seen in many, many places, and it talks about your BI and analytics capabilities. I have brought BI in here as well, because sometimes when we talk to people, they talk about data science and machine learning, but when we take it back to what is the problem they're trying to solve, it actually ends up being something that's more about visualization of business intelligence. The earlier bit I spoke about it being an ecosystem, and some of the, I guess, boring stuff that surrounds analytics are things like understanding a master data view of my data, being able to clean my data. So to give you an example of that, say you're on Uber Eats and there's multiple people, or you've created multiple profiles, and you've put your name in with different spellings a few times, or you've changed your address, and maybe it's just like the way you've written it down. So you had your address says, I'm on Dunkeld West Road. At one point you had a D space West, another time you typed out the full word Dunkeld West, another time it was all caps, another time all small letters. Now, the ability to cleanse that data is to take all of those different types of variations of what you put in and create one consistent view. Now, this is critical when it comes to analytics. And you think, but why? This is like so far down the stream. Why is that important? We had a very interesting case once where we were doing credit card transaction analytics. So by looking at credit card transactions, you can try to decipher what is the behavior of that individual and then try to predict a life stage of that individual. What we started to predict was a likelihood to be pregnant next or to be expecting a baby. So we thought this was fantastic analytics, and we should be, or I was at a financial institution at the time, should be calling up these clients and offering them, these special packages around savings for kids, discounts at certain organizations, things like that. Except we made the mistake once of calling someone who, and it was actually a dad that answered, and it wasn't actually the daughter's address, so it wasn't actually the right person we were contacting. And all of that was linked back to, we didn't have a single view of that data, a consistent view of the individual we were profiling to match it up to a contact information and to match up the transactions as all being hers. So if we had had clean data, it would have decreased the probability of something like that happening. Now, this appears in all levels of life. When you sometimes get a phone call for upgrading your telephone service and you've already been running with a contract, you're not up for renewal, it's because the data wasn't clean. Someone wrote predictive analytics to say this person's likely to take another upgrade, but the data wasn't right. So we have that bit. And then as we move up that, we look at descriptive analytics, which tell us what happened. Diagnostic, which starts to give us a bit of scenarios, like why did this happen? Can I dig a little deeper? Then the predictive, which is telling me what will happen. And prescriptive is again bringing to you what Natalie has described there. Now we've got automation, robotics, machine learning. Another way I like to explain this to my team and as we grow skills internally is a bit like this. I really hope you guys are fans of like cartoon stuff. So the data you get that you're trying to apply AI on looks like this. And if I look at that, I can vaguely make out what it is, but it's a bit of a mess. Once we start to standardize and clean it, you start to get a view of, okay, cool, I know what this is. At least I know what I'm working with. It starts to look a hell of a lot better when I start to add value to my data. And I'm getting value because I've got my diagnostics and I've got my predictions. And then once we get into the world of robotics, AI, etc., it's like ultra color. We know exactly what we're doing. And this is right, kind of the amazing part of data. And I guess this is just to reemphasize that analytics doesn't live by itself. You've actually got to go through these draft wonderful versions before you get to this Technicolor version. Making this all real, this is what a real life example of opportunities out there look like. So when we talk about the jobs and what people would be doing in their jobs, this is kind of what the data role and the outcomes kind of look like. There's a very boring bit on the left-hand side. I call it boring because it's stuff you have to do that gives you a great result, but it's kind of like, it's not horribly exciting. It's classifying your data. It's understanding privacy around information. Is that something that's confidential? Is it something secret, etc.? It's about access to information. Now that sounds so simple, but one of the biggest things that like something like Waze got right was access to information. Once you pass that, I mean, the rest becomes so much easier. The beauty in insights comes from not one data set. It comes from combining data sets. So once you're able to take one set of information, like the accident pictures or images, and you overlay that with a GIS route system, and then you overlay that again with maybe people complaining or WhatsApping about issues on the road, you start to get more real insight on what is really happening. And then another important thing in AI, it's failing fast and forward, meaning you can try and play with the data and figure something out and see if it's going to solve this problem or automate this. But the thing is, you don't know until you try it. And there's a lot around the process behind that to try and do it quickly, test a theory, test a scenario out, doesn't work, bring in some other variables, retrain your model. All of this stuff leads to these types of outcomes on the right-hand side. And this is how it helps the world as well. And these are the types of things that teams working in data are building. These are their outcomes. What's important about these outcomes, they're not about reducing jobs. They actually create opportunities for more things and doing better things at work. One of the examples in the upskilling and cross-skilling is attracting and retraining workforce. So having analytics tell us what is our churn of people? How often do they leave? Why do they leave? Why do some stay? What are the reasons around this? What are predictive things we can do to keep people within an organization? Another interesting one around enriched data sets analysis. C-Track is kind of like this vehicle tracking information. You take that, you take traffic data, weather data, crime stats. Immediately, you've got predictive route optimization. So again, this talks to combining multiple data sets to create something new or some new insight. Protecting the business, and I think in the future, not too far future, this will be protecting the individual. Things like predicting maintenance, right? So we work with organizations, and if we can predict that, for example, the manufacturing plant, a bottling plant, before that actual machine goes down, we get an alert, we know that a part needs to be replaced. That saves immense amount of money in terms of the actual productivity, in terms of keeping people employed and engaged. That's fantastic. Now imagine applying this to your own life. Predictive maintenance around all of the appliances in your home, vehicle, everything. It's like, you would know your toaster is going to explode before your toaster does, that your iron's going to last so long. So I think how I see the future going is, yes, this is all in business, but very, very soon this is going to move strongly towards a B2C model, meaning directly consumed by individuals. And the last bit is just new revenue streams. And again, this talks to expanding the job market. Data gives you new insights that you wouldn't have known before. So I usually talk about Zhang Yin here. She's a woman who's, I think, the richest in the world at this moment. And through analysis of data, she figured out that all of these cargo ships that come in with stuff from China that lands in the US, they leave the US shores empty and go back. So she said, well, there's an opportunity there. She turned that information into an actual action by taking recyclables, putting them into that cargo ship, shipping them back to China, get recycled, and go back into that value chain of creating new products out of it. So again, it's about finding information that tells us something that might seem obvious, but it's like, that's interesting. We can do more with it. And that, I'm leaving you with just some quotes around data. Some of them are a little bit tongue-in-cheek because the world of data is so vast with so much happening in there. And I think my final message to everyone is there is AI. AI lives in a world surrounded by lots of data things, and there are so many opportunities there for careers. It's all about developing the competencies to grab hold onto one of these things or ideas. And yeah, thank you. I look forward to chatting to you more now.
Thank you, Varsha. Oh, I feel like you know me than I know myself now, because now, everything that I do, AI tends to know about it, and I don't know, a lot about myself. But thank you very much for the presentation. I have a few comments and questions here that I would like to go into. The first one is AI is transforming the education landscape, and the pace of innovation will keep accelerating. For the education sector to successfully implement AI, it's essential that they consider how humans will interact with the technology. What is your comment on that, Varsha? Or even Natalie can respond to that.
Sure, I can go first, and then Natalie, maybe you can add on. I think people have almost been ignoring the impact. And I don't think that the education has been changing fast enough to realize that in your spare time, you've got access to all these apps, and you're probably self-learning faster than like the traditional old school system is able to catch up. So you've got things like Udemy, etc., out there where it's easily accessible. And I guess the other interesting thing for me is COVID's onto shifting that a wee bit. Where we've relied on traditional schooling mechanisms of you've got to go to a classroom, learn these things, etc., you've now got access to unlimited online resourcing. So for me, it's actually, it's almost like the schools need to try and, I wouldn't say catch up, but schools maybe need to change how they engage with people. Do you know what I mean? It's like everything has become a bit of a Netflix world now. I want to do something when I need to do it, because that's how I interact with things. We do it socially. We do it with our families. We do it in how we pay our bills online. So how do you create education on demand that kind of becomes more consumable and helps people kind of bridge that gap faster? That's probably the kind of thing I'm sitting with. Natalie, do you want to?
So yeah, I think the adoption from a basic education or education perspective needs to be one of adaptability. We need to maneuver our thinking and maneuver the way we have done things and re-engineer it so that we can cater for this 4IR that we all talk about. I think it's playing out now. I think many of our schools have adopted Google Classrooms, and there's virtual teachers. So yes, to answer the question, I think it's something that we need to do, and it's something that we need to do quite quickly.
Thank you for the response. There's another question here. It says, why is there so few women in this industry? Are there specific reasons for this?
Yeah, this is a passion point for both of us, I think, Natalie. I don't know if you want to go first.
Yes, I think it was, if you look at the biases and if you look at history, women are just getting into the industry now, and we would see the turn and the uptake in coming years. But like Irisha is saying, if we don't take it upon ourselves to upskill and to be relevant, then we are going to be the minority yet again. We now, to Varsha's point, we now have vast amounts of information, study material. Instead of being an influencer on social media, I would encourage people to actually download Udemy and upskill themselves, so that women are raised to the platforms that they need to be raised. And I can tell you now, no one else is going to do it for you. You have to do it for yourself.
I can probably share the corporate view as well. So I think what I've been very lightened to see is that there's a lot more women in the industry from a startup perspective. So in the smaller companies, I am definitely seeing growth there, which is so heartening and so amazing. And I think a lot of that links back to what Natalie says. Those women are driven by self-development. So they're taking it upon themselves to learn these certain new techniques, etc. Previously, I think there was a strong bias around the sciences were more for males and less so for females, unfortunately. So career-wise, I think that's halted things. But the other reality is, I mean, if I still look around boardrooms, etc., I mean, I'll still see 3 females to every 10 males in that environment. So I don't think it's just the education aspect. I think there is something around, I think culturally, organizationally, and maybe not even AI related. There's still a female aspect to how do you ensure that the female's voice is equivalent to the other voices in a room. And that is an ongoing struggle. And the thing we can do from our own careers is ensure that we're developing pathways for other women to just, step onto that next ladder and just kind of create more space for it. I know that sounds highly feminist, but there's lots of guys doing the same. They've acknowledged that space needs to be created, so they're ensuring their successes are females, and they're actively trying to get that in place. So I do have hope for the future, but it's not something that's going to change in the next 2 years.
Yeah, and I think it's very valid what you're saying, Varsha. I mean, I read an article from Business Insider yesterday that says there are 0 women of color leading Fortune 500 companies right now. Now that alludes to people of color, but if you look at how many females are leading Fortune 500 companies right now, it's probably, we can count it on our hands. So what you're saying is relevant. And it alludes to the fact that, we need to make sure that we are being seen and we are equipping ourselves to make the change. I mean, if it's always somebody else's problem to look at, and if there's always somebody else's problem to solve, then it's going to just be years and decades again that someone else is going to have this conversation over a fancier Zoom call.
Okay, Natalie, maybe I will direct this one to you and say, as an ambassador for women in AI, what do you do, to make sure that we have more women in AI? Maybe tell us more about the organization itself, Women in AI.
Yeah, so Women in AI is a global organization. We have presence in over 90 countries worldwide. The essence of Women in AI is to bring about a community for women. Firstly, to mentor each other in AI and new technology. Secondly, to provide a global network, networking operations and community. And thirdly, to educate not only the educated, but the underprivileged and the less fortunate. Now, we believe strongly that you can be underprivileged and less fortunate, but you're not stupid. So it's taking education right down into our rural areas, teaching them about what is AI and the basics of just using a laptop or computer. And that's what Women in AI is all about.
Okay. Do you think you have enough support in South Africa as Women in AI? And how do people access you, to join the organization, to get your services and be involved?
Yes, please do become a member by joining Women in AI. You can go onto our website, www.womeninai.co, and then choose the South Africa region and myself as the ambassador. Do we have a presence here in South Africa? Yes, I believe strongly that we do. We all may not know what we're doing here in South Africa from an AI perspective, and that just boils down to knowledge and whether we're marketing ourselves quite well. But I must share with you that our women in AI community here in South Africa is probably going to be the first to bring African language into AI. Wow. And then you're going to have Google Maps speaking in Zulu or Xhosa or something that's related to us, and that's been birthed here in South Africa.
Wow. Are there any requirements that people need to really join Women in AI?
Yeah, the only requirement is that you are passionate about AI and that you're part of a community that's going to make a difference and a change to our world, really.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And one more thing, men can join too. We do not discriminate.
Oh, you don't discriminate. Okay.
Not at all.
Okay, I have here another question which says, how as women in AI do you promote AI to youngsters, and how do you get them hooked?
Oh, yeah. There's a few communities that we partner with to bring AI to young children. Young children are very physical with their hands. So there's drone learnings that's happening across the country where children can go on a Saturday, be part of a drone classroom. There's Coding Mamas, that's an organization looking at mothers who want to migrate into AI, and they offer programs that encourage young development. They offer block-based sort of scratch coding. So yeah, there's various organizations, and they do encourage children to become part of the community.
Okay, the one other thing that I heard Varsha speak about earlier is that, you don't necessarily have to have a background in maths and science, to join AI. Can you sort of clarify that? Because we've always been saying maths and science to students, and somebody's listening now and say, wow, I don't have maths and science, which means I can still go in there.
It's a double barrel answer.
It is a double barrel answer. So I'll give the one part. There's certain things that if you really want to do in analytics, you will have to do stats and maths. So if you want to be that person building that algorithm, doing the feature engineering down to a detailed level, you're still going to need that. If you're someone else, I'm going to use my brother as an example. My brother actually did financial engineering. So yes, he did do maths, but there was no programming involved in it at all. And he's currently a data scientist. And what happened was the data scientist unicorn Venn diagram comes into play. It's about understanding domain knowledge. So do you understand something in a domain? And this could be someone who's, I think to Natalie's example of Varsha, someone who's got business understanding in an environment. The second bit is about understanding technology. And this is where the self-learning comes in. So yes, someone's gone down a path of doing a BCom. There's still Udemy, and you can still learn R and Python language skills using something like that. And then it's about understanding a bit of problem solving and logic. It's kind of like the flow of things and how things work. And that's more a raw competency kind of thing. So if you are a problem solving type of individual with a penchant for wanting to create things, etc., that passion can help you with those other two pieces as well. That's going to get you to do that extra studying to go try and create a bot. For those who want to go and try that straight after today, because there's not much else we do on a Friday afternoon with COVID, you could go into IBM's site as an example, and they've got these Watson robots, so RPA kind of things. You can immediately create a little environment of your own and start doing some basics. Right? So it's all about this active experimentation. So I wouldn't say that you have to study maths and science for that whole spectrum of jobs I've just described or competencies. But if you want to be that very specialist person who is going to be creating those algorithms, then yes, you've got to go do that. Those people usually end up doing their PhDs because that is a specialist skill that they are building. And there you do need your maths and science, scientists, etc. But please understand that there's another path as well, but it takes a lot of onus on the individual to then go and self-study and develop those skills. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yes. And I want to add to that, I think we must encourage our people to study maths and science, because it provides logic and problem solving capabilities. And that's what AI and technology needs. Now, if Irisha didn't have maths and science, she would not be able to pick up and learn the that AI brings to the fore. So we must encourage maths and science. And yes, it can be done without maths and science, but it's going to be very difficult.
The other day we had a presenter here, and he said, actually, people like who are in the auditing field, that field is being affected by AI, and robotics, because robots can do a much better job, than the auditor himself. What do you say to that? Because now there's a student there who's sitting doing BCom accounting and wondering, why am I doing this when the robot can do a faster job than me? What can I do now?
Yeah, a very interesting question. I think we would always need auditors and chartered accountants, because they would input into what the robot does. The robot just does not know anything on its own. And Irisha, if you want to join in, because a robot is like the laptop. If you leave your laptop open, it's not going to type on its own. So an auditor would need to be part of the automation process, and they would need to be part of AI, because they would need to transfer the information to the robot so that it would be able to do what it needs to be done. So the brain will always be in a human.
Okay. No, thanks. That's Aisha. Maybe you want to come in there? Is she there? It doesn't look like she's there.
She might be struggling with the mute. No, I think I support what Natalie says there, that these robotics AI doesn't get the data from nowhere. There needs to be a source of it. So for the students who are studying those BComs, etc., they would also have to question the outcomes out of that model. So there's this perpetual machine learning bit where you've got to tweak it back with some sort of feedback that needs to go in there. So that is still highly, highly relevant. And that example, I'm not sure who did speak last, but I am thinking of a financial institution that did roll it out. And where the efficiency came in was more that it could do the mass execution and then bring back the results. But results still also required a human eye at the end of it. Because you get some information, you still got to verify it. If you don't have that background and that knowledge, how do you question it? Kind of thing. That's all very, very critical.
Okay. Do you have to work hard as women, twice as hard as men in the sector? And what prejudices have you encountered?
Oh, that's a brilliant question. That's such a brilliant question, because I'm feeling so wiped out currently. Busy time.
So again, Varsha, I want to take it first, and then maybe you can go after. I think we need to be careful of what we accepting as women. I don't think we have to work twice as hard as men, because we work smarter, firstly. Secondly, it's based on your work ethic. If you are going to want to always be the best, and you want to understand something from its onset right up until, cradle to grave, you're going to put in that effort, whether you male or female, but it comes down to you as a person, and what's your attitude to wanting to run a race that provisions you to come out on top and be the best. I don't think we have to work twice as hard. What we need to do is always remember that what we give out is what others benefit from. And it's not a us and them. It's not a human against a robot, and it's not a female against male, and it's not black against white, and it's not all of that. If you look at pure AI sees no color, it sees no creed, it sees no nationality, it sees no rich or poor. AI on its own only becomes infiltrated with what we compare ourselves against is based on me. If I have the biases within me and discrimination within me, I code AI and I program AI with those biases. I believe you are female and you need a 10% rate, and I believe you are male and you've always been privileged and you need a 25% rate. That's the way I'm going to embrace AI. And I want to make it very clear, especially to all of us here, that AI in its purest sees no discrimination. And I want to guard against us going into discrimination, and we need to separate the us and them. It's not male against female. It's really your drive and your ethic and what you want out of a situation.
Okay, Varsha?
100% agree that the biases come from humans. The question about, do we work twice as hard? So, I mean, I come from a different world. So, but in my reflections, and I've reflected on this, I think every couple of years, I sit down and ask myself this exact same question. And it actually comes down to the individual. I think sometimes as women, we create this perception that we need to be seen a certain way and we need to do things a certain way. So when our male counterpart says he's leaving early to go watch that soccer match with his kids, everybody's cool. As a female, we assume there'll be biases if we ask the same question. So we don't push back enough and just ask for it. Instead, we almost create this own narrative in our minds that we have to work extra hard. We have to be 100% work focused only, and that there is no work-life integration for us. So personally, and this is again my own personal view and my personal reflection on me as an individual, sometimes I put too much high pressure on myself, thinking I need to be a certain way, as opposed to sitting back and saying, what's the smart way to do this? As per Natalie's point. So it's about rewriting the scripts in our own minds and stop working on assumptions of how we think other people will perceive us, and just saying, you know what? This is a new norm. This is how life's going to be. And again, COVID's been a brilliant example of that. You know, we've all stressed about running home to see to a kid or running home to cook or do whatever we like to do. I sit in meetings now where the kids come along and we have an official, serious meeting. Kids are there, dog is there, everything's fine. So I ask, how much of this is in our own assumptions versus let's just create a new norm kind of thing.
Yeah,
that's my view.
Wow, well put. And I think I have two comments here which says, well said, Natalie. So agree, Natalie. So it is how driven you are. It was really brilliant, ladies. Thanks so much, and let's do it again. That's another comment coming in. Do you have any concluding remarks, both of you, and maybe to our students and anybody else listening to us at this stage? Any concluding remarks and advice that you can give?
I think the closing remarks is to remain true to yourself, remain driven, and remain ethical, because that's what AI needs. To be the change that we all talk about and to see the reduction of biases in AI, we as a people need to be ethical.
You know what? The world is changing so fast in data, and what you're studying creates that foundation. If you are doing the BCom, if you're studying law, whatever, every bit of that has a place in that future world. That domain knowledge doesn't go away, and it's so critical. So I think I just want to reiterate, stay true to yourself, to your path, and also don't be afraid to create a career path that doesn't exist yet. It will exist tomorrow. That's it. Thank you guys for the time.
Thank you. And then lastly, thanks to Irisha and the financial institution that allowed for her time. I think she's been phenomenal in encouraging us that we can do it. And what we're saying is really true.
Thank you very much, ladies, for having taken time off your busy schedules to come and talk to us. It was a real pleasure, but I'm just worried, Varsha, that you've got so much information about me that I don't have about myself. But thank you very much. This was very informative, and I hope we will do more on other topics.
The University of Johannesburg, the future reimagined.